This is Yvette Carnell with Your Black World, and right now I'm interviewing Pascal Robert, who is a Haitian-American blogger and writer, writes for the Huffington Post, writes a blog for Black Agenda Report. And what we're talking about today is this Zogby poll that BET's Bob Johnson commissioned. He commissioned this Zogby poll to kind of gauge how black people feel about Obama, but their future with Obama, whether they were better off over the past 4 years. And I just want to kind of hash that out with Pascal because there was some interesting things in terms of where black people actually are economically and how they responded to the poll. But I just want to first get an assessment from Pascal in terms of how he actually would frame Bob Johnson in terms of his background and the context of Bob Johnson, who was, the head of BET, billionaire Bob Johnson. I just want to get that assessment from you first, Pascal.
All right. Once again, thanks again for having me on the program, Yvette. Basically, Bob Johnson, as most people know, was the founder of BET, which is, was one of the initial or first black cable television ventures in the early 80s. He is one of the one or two black billionaires we have. I think him and Oprah Winfrey. BET, as we know, is, very popular, but it has a kind of questionable reputation in some people's eyes because of the programming and some of the videos that it has on it over time. It kind of developed that. But Bob Johnson, in terms of his politics, as we know, which is more relevant to the conversation we're having right now, in 2007 and 2008, during that campaign, was not an Obama supporter initially. He was actually a very big Hillary Clinton supporter and made some kind of offhanded comments about Obama relative to quote-unquote drug use and things of that nature that really did not inure himself too well to many Obama supporters at that time. So his politics in terms of his support initially was that he was a Clinton supporter early on, and then obviously when Obama won the primary, I'm sure he jumped on the bandwagon. He's a loyal Democrat and moved on from there. But in terms of Bob Johnson's politics, there are a couple of things that most people probably do not know, is that Bob Johnson in 2001 supported abolishing the estate tax and put a publication in the New York Times with a few other black multimillionaires. And as most people know, abolishing the estate tax pretty much does not benefit the average African American. It removes $75 billion of somewhat to that extent from revenue that could be used for programs that benefit, people who are on the margins economically. And he also was an advocate of privatizing Social Security accounts. That was a plan that Bush was coming up with in the early 2000s, which I think everyone after realizing the economic downturn we had in 2008, if that had occurred, it would have been a complete disaster for senior citizens, disabled people, and retirees. So in terms of Bob Johnson's politics on the financial tip when it comes to money issues is pretty much in line with the DLC, more conservative vein of the Democratic Party, and not too far in line with some aspects of the Republican Party as well, particularly when it comes to estate tax and when it comes to Social Security and its privatization. So once again, this demonstrates a theme that we've had in these videos consistently, that this notion that just because someone is black and he's a public figure and he's someone that's giving you programming, BT, that you like, that you think is good for the community, that he has your political interests at heart in terms of what he supports ideologically. And that's a perfect example where that linked fate, racial kinship concept ruptures is Bob Johnson and the policy and the politics that he advocates for, at least in those two instances. So I hope that gives you a good idea in terms of where he is in terms of his frame.
Exactly. And here's the poll. The Zogby poll that Bob Johnson commissioned, it was surprising to me. I wasn't surprised by the amount of people who had black people who had a favorable view of Barack Obama. Black people are still very proud of Barack Obama being the first black president. So I wasn't surprised that 91% of African Americans have a favorable view of Obama. What I was surprised at when you see the number of 72% of black people who seem to feel that that Obama has done something for them, that they're better off after his first administration. That was surprising to me when you couple that against the 30% of people who feel they're economically better off. So how do you feel that you're better off under Obama? 70% of black people feel they're better off, but only 30% of people feel they're economically better off. How do you gauge that? What's the difference between the illusion and the reality? How does that happen?
Yeah, this is a very interesting phenomenon. As you have a poll by Zogby, which is a legitimate polling organization, that says that 72% of African Americans feel that they are happier or in a better place with Obama being president. And asked in terms of how many feel that they are in a better place economically than they were 4 years ago, only 30% say that. So basically, it's only 30% of you are saying that you feel you are in a better economic place than you were 4 years ago. what is the basis of you saying that 72% of you are enthralled with your position relative to the Obama presidency in terms of him doing things for you? And this is a product of several things that we've touched on before. One of them, in terms of where Obama, what he means relative to the black community. And this goes to a piece that I recently wrote that's in the Huffington Post and the Black Agenda Report called The Politics of Redemption. And basically what the Politics of Redemption talks about is that the symbolic value of Barack Obama and what he represents for black people, for many in the black community, is more important than whatever policy initiatives he puts forth that may be beneficial or detrimental to the community. In other words, just the symbol of having a black man seen to be articulate, handsome, with a nice black family can present such a valuable image to white America that black people are capable of having a nice wife, nice kids, Ivy League educated, clean cut, and so some kind of modicum of responsibility governing sophisticated affairs, that symbol is so important that it's irrelevant that he might be implementing policies that are grounding us to dust. But because the fact that we get to feel good and say, well, now we have, the black representative, manna is going to fall from the sky and, water is going to turn to holy water and everything's going to be great, is a pathology, because the ultimate premise that the politics of redemption rests on is that we need to prove ourselves, our humanity, our capacity, our viability, our ability to function effectively to white people. And that Obama redeems us of all the negative images and stereotypes that we have as a people because he shows his capacity to lead. And it's it's a completely damaging political space to function from, because now you have vested in your quote-unquote oppressor the barometer by which your freedom is measured. In other words, we always have to say that as long as the white folk are chipping away, giving us little pieces of freedom, we feel better. We've talked about this before, and you brought up something that actually incorporated in that piece, and that one of the problems with the politics of redemption is that it never stops. The carrot just keeps getting moved further and further down the line, and we never end up getting that quote-unquote a desired equality that we want with, with white folk. We just end up having to tap dance and do all these things. So it's not surprising to me, because there was a poll that was done during Obama's first administration that actually Glenn Ford touched upon in a very good video where he was being interviewed with Sam Stein on a radio program, talking about, that the reason why, as Glenn Ford says, Obama is the more effective evil is because he neutralizes opposition. And what Glenn Ford's thesis is that because the African American community has been traditionally the most consistent progressive community in terms of particularly economic and social issues from the 60s and even before that because they are in this state of this politics of redemption where they attach this aspirational value to Barack Obama, as long as they are neutralized from fighting the very, very, very damaging policy agenda of not only this administration, but the current status quo politics in general, that there will be no opposition to neoliberal privatization of charter schools, of hyper-privatization of healthcare, of global drone strikes, of basically the Bush tax cuts getting extended or approved by 99% by the Obama administration, by the sequester and the planned austerity, by Obama since 2007 saying he wanted to cut or rein in Social Security and Medicare, which are all programs and things that work to the advantage of large numbers of African Americans and people of color. There is going to be no opposition to that agenda, which is just as vile as anything Republicans would put forth, because we are in this state of being redeemed by the Obama presidency, and he makes us feel so much better because he shows the world that we have a capacity. It's defeatist, it's humiliating, and it's a sad, sad state of where we are 150 years after emancipation, that we still depend on having to have someone show out for the man to make us feel like we're human beings. And what this poll exhibits is a perfect example of how that reality is still in play and still damaging us, as right now we have African-American teachers and teachers of color, teachers in general in Chicago, being arrested and fined for protesting, 60 public schools being shut down in Chicago, which is a record according to what I've read, and that this is a direct result of Obama's Race to the Top program. But when you tell this to black folk, it's like, oh, it's the Republicans, oh, you can't be, he's all president. Why are you hating on my president? And this is the state the black community is in relative to this presidency. And it, unless something drastic happens, I don't know if it's going to change. And what it does is that it's an effective tool of demobilization of opposition. I had a conversation with a friend of mine recently. We were talking about Occupy Wall Street. And Occupy Wall Street had a lot of problems in terms of structure as a movement. I understand that. But it was the only actual salvo that was shot out towards finance capital in America relative to the fact that they had wiped out $20 to $40 trillion of wealth with the subprime crisis and the economic meltdown. And I noticed that there were certain African-American Obama supporters in the media, journalists like Jonathan Capehart and a few others, who were talking about how what's the purpose of Occupy? Jay-Z, what's the purpose of Occupy? Why, what is with this Occupy Wall Street? Which I don't think was accidental, because a lot of people realized
it was
that
too. Yeah, it was a bunch of them.
If Occupy Wall Street is successful as a movement, this could tarnish the first 4 years of the administration of our first black president. I found it horrendously sad that a community that was most adversely affected by subprime predatory loans and had a more disproportionate effect to the economic downturn is now questioning the only movement that is on the scene that is basically attacking the people who perpetuated those policies. And this is a direct result and a direct product of this emotional attachment, this wish fulfillment, this vapid feel-good politics that we have when it comes relative to this Obama presidency that is basically getting this ground to powder at the same time.
And I agree with that. And even when you take it to the next level, like when you look at it in terms of, I call it the politics of symbolism. It's not just Obama who takes advantage of that capital. And I don't mean to bring players. I know we talked about the players who tried to knock the black people in media who tried to kind of knock Occupy Wall Street, off the table. But even when I look at this most recent controversy, Roland Martin didn't get his contract renewed with CNN, and he had a conversation with HuffPost Live when he basically kind of, tried to use the capital of black people to say, CNN's racist, blah, 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 blah. So we have the people, which kind of implies to me, let me just back up, which kind of implies to me that you have an expectation that blacks should do something to help you maintain your job, that's the best use of our political capital in the political sphere. So this politics of symbolism, just kind of in a way transcends that, because we have these people on the field who now use our political capital to protect their jobs, their well-being, but don't move towards a class movement or don't do anything to help poor people, black poor people, working class people.
Which the current excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt you. No, don't highlight the ways in which the current administration is putting forth policies that are damaging the black community. I would like someone in the black media out there, hello black media, to talk about how Obama's Race to the Top program is damaging public schools in the black community. There was recently a program on MSNBC they were talking about how is it racist that charter schools are being closed in the black community? Is it racist when a black president is implementing policy that's causing public schools to be closed in the black community? How come no one is see, there's this constant attempt to talk about how, there's these terrible things that are happening and it's a horrible state of affairs. And then when it comes to the ultimate question of, who's proposing these policies? Who was the president who said, I'm putting the sequester in the 2011 budget bill because I want to force Democrats to put Social Security on the table? No one says, it was President Obama, because that's our first black president and his symbolic value is so good. So we all know, so there's a kind of rumbling where we all know, this is terrible, this is horrible, and it's the Republicans. It has nothing to do with the Republicans. Of course, the Republicans are used as the bat that takes the ball further down the right. But the thing is, though, the catcher is running with the mitt, taking it further down as well. And the person with the mitt is President Obama, because his reaction to the right-wing onslaught is not to combat them with the bully pulpit and policy initiatives that are further to the left, causing them to reflexively fall back. His reaction is to coalesce and basically collapse to the initiatives of the right and move further to the right. And this is something that happened even before Obama. Bill Clinton did the same thing, whether it was deregulation, whether it was with, AFDC or welfare. And this has been the posture of the Democratic Party really basically for the last 20 some odd years since the Clinton administration. But Obama has taken it to another level because he also more effectively neutralizes opposition. So in regards to media celebrities, black media celebrities using their capital in the black community to say that, come on, y'all got to rally around me. I'm getting fired and it's because of racism. God forbid it could be anything else. But I mean, that doesn't surprise me, because at the same time, these are the same people who would not challenge the status quo agenda in terms of how it's affecting the black people in a truly controversial fashion. They might say things, well, this kind of like pedestrian critiques, like, what's President Obama doing for the black community? Or say things like Roland Martin, for example, say like, well, I tell black folk all the time they need to demand more of the president. Okay, that's a really kind of shallow way to address the fact that, well, let's not talk about what black folk need to do. Let's talk about how the president's politics are affecting them. And then they'll come out and say, well, he gave more money to HBCUs. And what about the Obamacare? Well, guess what? Bush actually increased donations to HBCUs too. My. How friendly was he to the black community? And in terms of Obamacare, no one talks about the fact that there's been, as we talked about last time, this glitch that has been proven in Obamacare that's going to deny hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of poor folk, which will be disproportionately black folk, from even the alleged benefits of that program. No one talks about the fact that Medicare Advantage is now being eviscerated all over the country as well, and how other black who are low-wage workers are losing the ability to work full-time or part-time because their employers do not want to provide Obamacare to their staff. So these ancillary, secondary, and tertiary results of these allegedly beneficial programs are something that these same folk will not discuss, or the fact that Barack Obama shut down or closed all of the regional offices of the Minority Business Development Administration, which is an organization that helps black businesses, and the fact that he's merging the Small Business Administration with the Commerce Department, which basically means it's not, because those are two business entities that are totally diametrically opposed. The Commerce represents, the large-scale corporate interests, the Chamber of Commerce, and the SBA represents small businesses. So all of these moves, we have all these, young black entrepreneurial corporatists who are big supporters of Obama. He's cutting you at the knees. I mean, you know how many times I've had black folk on social media, I would present to them policies that the Obama administration is presenting that are directly adversely affecting African Americans, like charter schools, like the cutting of the regional offices of the Minority Business Development Agency, and they will defend why it's not that bad. They will say it's not that bad, and they'll try to rationalize. I was like, this is a proof positive that Glenn Ford's theory that Obama's the more effective evil is true. Because if a Republican was trying to do this, you would be storming the Bastille. You would be rallying the troops.
I'm just going to wrap it up right now. But this brings me to my last question, because I do read the comments, that people leave when we have conversations. And one of the questions in terms of the analysis here, and I'm just going to make this the last question. I just want you to kind of just do the best you can at answering this for me. What do we do to close that gap between what working class people, especially working class black people, think about Obama and what Obama is doing versus what he's actually doing? When you look at, we try to provide authentic content and write it, but when you look at what's out there, there's not a lot that really goes deep into what he's doing and how he's doing it. So what are our responsibilities as thinkers, as writers, in terms of making that happen?
Oh, it's very simple. We got to give a political education to the people who are outside being affected by these policies, whether they be labor workers, teachers, unions, people in the street corner, people who use Social Security, who use Medicare, Medicaid, and let them know that this is the bottom line. Regardless of Obama or not, this is how these policies are affecting you, and we have to mobilize. And I've said this in 2 or 3 different pieces right now. We have to return to grassroots, movement-based politics in the community. We have not had movement-based politics as a community, black, white, or otherwise, in this country for almost 50 years. And we see how much the calcification of wealth, of power, and economic coalescing of those interests to the right, to the elite, has metastasized, has grown tremendously in the absence of those movement-based politics. And unless there is a resurgence of radical movement-based politics in this country, globally, I would say, with the agenda of global austerity, that we are going to get crushed by this agenda. And this is the agenda, and Obama has signed on to it, and it's beyond him. He's just part of a bigger machine. So I don't want people to think that we're fixated on Obama because he's just black and we're quote unquote haters. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with what are the policies, what are their effects, and what are they going to do to the communities that we at least have some concern for because we are members of them. And we see that as people who are challenging the status quo agenda that is traditionally not worked to our benefit, that we're not going to stand for it. So if we don't awaken that spirit of mobilization and move to a more sophisticated protest strategy, I'm not just talking about picketing and, kumbaya, like we tell them. I'm talking about disturbing capital, stopping the way things flow in a society, and letting people know that we are boycotting your economic paradigm until you change the way this functions to benefit us. Put demands on your government, put demands on the private sector, and let them know that we have to restructure. Why are we having this deindustrialization where we have all these jobs going to Latin and South America, and now we have a new economic agenda to now ship more jobs to Asia as well? Why has there been a decrease in wages for 30 years when corporate profits and Wall Street is off the chain? I mean, we are now in a state of austerity with sequester and cuts of cutting Social Security and Medicare, and we have Wall Street profits, corporate profits, and the stock market off the roof. The Dow is hitting 13,000, 14,000. It's off the chain now. So all the 1% is doing well when the 99% is getting ground to dust, and no one's asking questions because we all feel good because we have a black man who is at the levers of power, who is basically bringing down the house, but no one else cares because we have this politics of redemption. We have this feel-good politics. Yay! Look at Michelle Obama with the lovely arms and the beautiful kids. Everyone's happy. All the girls cute in the White House. It's great. It's great, and that's everyone's feel-good. While they're getting when this is over, and your house is foreclosed on, and you don't realize why the CPI has been adjusting your Social Security, and your grandma's eating cat food. What happened?
Yes, I'm gonna end it on that. I think I would at some point we need to kind of outline exactly how the grassroots movement is going to look. And I'm not saying that because we think it's our responsibility, but I just don't see anybody else doing it. But I want to thank you, Pascal. We will do this again, of course, next week, and I appreciate your time. All right.
No problem.